One evening, after an especially rewarding community performance, she returned home and sat at her piano. The familiar keys felt comforting under her fingers, carrying the echoes of countless hours spent learning, practicing, and performing. She played slowly, intentionally, reflecting on her journey from the quiet cafe to the stage, from uncertainty to confidence. Each note was a reminder of the power of persistence, the significance of embracing opportunities, and the magic that could emerge from seemingly ordinary beginnings. Her phone buzzed with messages from young musicians she had mentored, expressing gratitude for her guidance and inspiration. She responded with encouragement, sharing insights she had gained along the way, and reminding them that growth often comes gradually, with patience, effort, and dedication. She realized that her influence extended beyond her own achievements. By sharing her experiences and knowledge, she could help others overcome challenges, believe in themselves, and pursue their own dreams. The journey was ongoing. There were still obstacles, moments of self-doubt, and challenges that required careful attention and resilience. Yet, she faced them with the understanding that every experience, whether difficult or rewarding, contributed to her growth as an artist and as a person. Her music continued to evolve, reflecting the depth of her experiences, the nuances of her emotions, and the strength of her character. She recognized that the magic of her story lay not in fame, wealth, or accolades, but in the journey itself, the persistence, courage, and passion that had transformed Mockery into opportunity, silence into expression, and doubt into confidence. Each performance, each shared lesson, each moment of connection reinforced the idea that true growth comes from within, and that genuine talent, nurtured with dedication and belief, can inspire, uplift, and create lasting impact. As she played into the quiet night, the music flowed freely, a testament to resilience, hope, and the transformative power of following one's passion. Each melody was a reflection of her journey, each chord a celebration of perseverance, and each pause a reminder that even humble beginnings could lead to extraordinary accomplishments. The audience, whether present in the hall or in the hearts of those who listened to her recordings, could feel the authenticity and dedication behind every note. Her story, like her music, continued to touch lives, inspiring others to believe in themselves and pursue their own dreams. In the evenings, she continued to play at home, but now her music carried a new energy. She experimented with compositions, blending styles, exploring emotions she had not expressed before. Her piano became not only a tool for practice, but a canvas for creativity and expression. The hours she spent alone, once filled with doubt, were now moments of exploration and joy. She also began to mentor a few young musicians in her community, sharing the lessons she had learned about dedication, patience, and belief in oneself. She encouraged them to pursue their passions, to practice quietly, and to embrace opportunities when they appeared. Her story became an inspiration, showing that even humble beginnings could lead to extraordinary outcomes if one remained persistent and true to their dreams. One afternoon, she received a message from the millionaire who had first believed in her. He congratulated her on her recent showcase and expressed pride in her journey. He reminded her that talent, when nurtured with patience and dedication, could shine in ways unexpected. His words were a reflection of her growth and a reminder of the pivotal moment when Mockery had turned into magic. She smiled, realizing how far she had come. From the cafe to community stages, from private practice to public recognition, her journey had been a testament to resilience and courage. The magic was not just in her music, but in the persistence, dedication, and belief that had carried her forward. As she sat at her piano that evening, playing softly for herself, she reflected on the journey. Every challenge, every doubt, every moment of silence had shaped her. The music was no longer just a personal refuge. It was a bridge connecting her past, her present, and her future. It was a voice that could reach others, inspire them, remind them of the power of persistence and self-belief. She knew the road ahead would still hold challenges, moments of doubt and unexpected turns, but she had learned that magic comes from within, nurtured through dedication and courage. She had transformed mockery into recognition, doubt into confidence, silence into a voice that resonated beyond herself. Her journey was not about fame or fortune. It was about realizing the value of persistence, the strength of character, and the impact of sharing one's true self. Every performance, every note played, every young musician inspired, was a continuation of the story she had begun years ago. A story that proved that talent, when paired with courage and determination, could overcome even the harshest judgments and find its place in the world. And so, as she played into the night, the music flowed freely. A reflection of a journey that had begun with mockery, transformed by magic, and carried forward by the unwavering belief in herself. Each chord was a celebration of resilience, every melody a testament to the power of pursuing one's passion, and every pause a reminder that silence, when filled with dedication, could become a stage for extraordinary expression. Her story, like her music, had become a source of inspiration, hope, and magic, touching lives and proving that even the quietest beginnings could lead to the most remarkable transformations. The days turned into months, and the momentum of her musical journey continued to grow. Invitations to perform at local events became more frequent, and she slowly began to gain recognition beyond her immediate community. Each performance taught her something new, not just about technique, but about connecting with audiences, understanding the depth of emotions that music could evoke, and expressing stories without words. She learned that a single melody could carry hope, sorrow, joy, or remembrance. Depending on how it was played, her routine had become carefully balanced. Mornings at the cafe still grounded her in reality, reminding her of her humble beginnings, while afternoons and evenings were devoted to practice, composing, and exploring new pieces. Though some days were exhausting, she cherished every moment. Each day was a step forward, each note a message to herself and to the world about perseverance and courage. One evening, after a long day at the cafe, she received a call from a well-known local radio station. They had heard about her performances and wanted to interview her on a special segment highlighting emerging talent. The idea of speaking publicly about her journey filled her with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Speaking about her story felt more vulnerable than playing her music, but she accepted the invitation. She knew this was an opportunity to inspire others and share the lessons she had learned. On the day of the interview, she arrived at the station with her usual calm demeanor, though inside, her heart raced. The host greeted her warmly, setting a comfortable tone. Questions flowed naturally about her beginnings, her struggles balancing work and music, the night at the cafe when she first played in public, and the challenges she had faced along the way. She spoke honestly without embellishment, letting her experiences speak for themselves. She described the moments of doubt, the long hours of practice alone, and the simple joy of discovering her own voice through music. When asked about her inspiration, she smiled softly. "Music was always my escape," she said. "It gave me a place to express feelings I couldn't put into words. And now I want it to reach others, to remind them that persistence and belief in oneself can open doors you never imagined." The interview ended, and she left the station feeling lighter. It was one thing to perform. It was another to share her story openly. People responded positively. Calls, messages, and emails followed, some from aspiring musicians, some from listeners who found hope in her journey, and others from people who simply wanted to hear more music. She realized that her voice had grown beyond the piano. Her story, combined with her music, had the power to touch lives in ways she had never anticipated. In the following weeks, she received an invitation to participate in a charity event that featured a blend of art, music, and storytelling. The organizers wanted her to perform and share a brief account of her journey. She hesitated at first, concerned about balancing performance with public speaking. But she recognized the opportunity as another step forward. She agreed. The charity event took place in a modest auditorium filled with people from all walks of life. Some had never attended such events before, and others were regular patrons of local arts. She felt a quiet nervousness as she prepared to go on stage. The room hummed with anticipation. When it was her turn, she took a deep breath, walked to the piano, and introduced herself with sincerity. Her brief words about her beginnings and the challenges she had faced resonated with the audience. Setting the stage for the music that followed, she began to play. Slowly at first, letting the sound fill the hall and settle over the audience. The notes carried a mixture of emotions, memories of late nights spent practicing, moments of self-doubt, the exhilaration of her first public performance, and the growing sense of confidence that had blossomed over the months. People leaned forward, some closing their eyes, completely absorbed. The music told a story that words alone could not convey. By the end of her performance, the audience was captivated. Applause and cheers erupted, some standing in admiration. Tears glimmered in the eyes of those who had been touched deeply by the sincerity of her music and the courage in her words. She stepped away from the piano with a sense of fulfillment, realizing that her story had become more than personal achievement, was a source of inspiration for others. After the event, she was approached by a few attendees who expressed interest in learning from her or collaborating on future projects. Some were young musicians seeking guidance, others were local artists wanting to explore creative partnerships. Each conversation reaffirmed her belief that sharing talent and stories could create ripple effects. Touching lives far beyond her immediate surroundings, her connection to music deepened further. She experimented with new compositions, blending traditional styles with contemporary influences, exploring rhythms and melodies that conveyed complex emotions. Each piece became an exploration of herself, a dialogue between her past experiences and present understanding. She began to see her music as both a personal journey and a bridge connecting her with others. Her presence at community events continued to expand. Schools invited her to perform and talk to students, emphasizing the value of perseverance, self-expression, and following one's passion. She shared practical advice, encouraged practice and patience, and illustrated how even small daily efforts could accumulate into meaningful accomplishments. Students listened attentively, inspired by her dedication and authenticity. Meanwhile, she continued to work at the cafe, though now the atmosphere had shifted. Regular patrons noticed the change in her demeanor and presence. Her confidence, kindness, and quiet determination left an impression. Some customers asked about her music, some simply admired her resilience. She treated every interaction with respect and warmth. Understanding that each person she encountered was part of the tapestry of her life, through all these experiences, she never lost sight of the lessons she had learned from her humble beginnings. She remained grounded, recognizing the importance of hard work, patience, and staying true to herself. The applause, recognition, and invitations were gratifying, but they were secondary to the fulfillment she derived from practicing, creating, and sharing music sincerely. And somewhere across the city, a man who thought he understood success lay awake, replaying a simple melody that had changed the way he saw people forever. Months passed since that night at the cafe. Life had begun to change, but slowly, carefully, without rushing. She continued working her shifts, serving coffee and cleaning tables, but there was a new spark in her eyes. She walked with her head held a little higher, noticing the world differently. The piano at home felt warmer, more alive, and she spent hours playing, her music growing richer, stronger. The offer the millionaire had made did not immediately lead to grand stages or famous mentors. He had simply connected her with people who could help, introducing her to teachers and musicians who believed in nurturing real talent. Every meeting, every lesson, became a new challenge, pushing her to grow in ways she had only dreamed of. She studied carefully, learning the subtle movements, the deeper meaning behind notes, the way music could tell stories beyond words. Yet, every day still included her cafe work. Customers came and went, some recognizing her from before, some not. Some still judged by the apron, the worn shoes, the tired eyes. She no longer felt crushed by it. She had learned the quiet strength of patience, the kind that comes from knowing who you are and what you can do. Every time someone underestimated her, she smiled inwardly, remembering the applause, the silence, the moment when her music spoke louder than words ever could. Her evenings were different now. She practiced with determination, but also with joy. Each note carried the story she had lived, the struggles, the long nights, the moments of doubt and now. They carried hope. Her fingers danced across the piano, telling tales not just for herself, but for anyone who might hear and understand. The music no longer felt hidden. It was alive, reaching beyond the small apartment, beyond the quiet streets, beyond her own limitations. One afternoon, she received a message from one of the musicians introduced by the Millionaire. They spoke of a small concert, a community event where local talents could perform. It was not a huge audience, not a glamorous stage, but it was a chance. A chance to play not behind counters, not in silent rooms, but for people who had come to hear music itself. She felt nervous, a familiar flutter she had not felt in years. Fear of judgment still lingered. But it was tempered by experience and a quiet confidence she had earned. The night of the concert arrived. The hall was modest, with wooden chairs and simple lighting. Families, friends, and curious neighbors filled the room. She adjusted her dress, touched the piano, and breathed deeply. She remembered the cafe, the Millionaire, the first time she had played in public after years of silence. That memory gave her courage. She began with soft notes, gentle and precise, letting the music reach every corner of the room. The audience was quiet, leaning forward, waiting, listening. Her hands moved confidently now, guided by passion, trained by months of practice, and strengthened by years of waiting. Each chord carried her story. Every pause, every rise and fall in the melody spoke of perseverance and hope. By the middle of her performance, the room was completely absorbed. People held their breath, feeling the emotion in the notes. The music flowed naturally, like a river that had waited years to meet the ocean. Some closed their eyes, lost in the sound. Others leaned toward the stage, sensing the quiet power in every keystroke. When she reached the final notes, she slowed gradually, letting the last sound linger, hovering in the air. Silence followed, complete and deep. Then, gradually, applause began. Soft at first, growing louder, until it filled the hall with warmth and admiration. People rose to their feet, cheering, clapping, some wiping tears. She felt a rush of emotion, not fear or doubt, but pure connection. For the first time, she realized that her music could touch lives. It could speak to hearts she had never met. After the performance, she stepped off the stage, heart still racing. Musicians and attendees approached her, praising her skill, asking about her journey, telling her how moved they had been. The Millionaire had been right. Talent deserves recognition, but it also takes courage to let it shine. She smiled, thanked everyone politely, but inside, she felt a quiet pride, a sense of belonging she had not known before. From that night on, her life gradually shifted. Offers to perform at small events came, some recordings, some invitations to study with professional musicians. She still worked at the cafe, but it no longer defined her. The apron was no longer a shield hiding her talent, but a reminder of where she had started, the place that had shaped her patience and determination. She continued to practice daily, each note a message to herself and to the world. She learned to balance work, practice, and opportunities. She encountered obstacles, doubts, and moments of fear, but she faced them with the same quiet determination that had carried her through the cafe. Through judgment, through mockery, her music became more than a talent. It became a voice for resilience, a symbol that life could be harsh but persistence, courage, passion could transform it. She inspired people around her, not by grand gestures, but by showing that real talent, hidden in unlikely places, could shine brilliantly when given a chance. And every time she played, whether in a crowded hall, a quiet room, or a small cafe, she remembered the journey. The journey from mockery to magic, and the moment her music finally spoke for her. Time passed, and life became a steady rhythm of music, work, and new opportunities. She had learned to balance her responsibilities at the cafe with her growing musical pursuits. Each day felt purposeful. Each night she returned to her piano, refining her skills, exploring new compositions, and embracing the joy that music brought to her heart. Her reputation slowly grew. Local musicians spoke highly of her talent, and she was invited to perform at more community events. Each performance, no matter the size of the audience, was a chance to connect and share her journey. She remembered every note she had played in her small apartment, every quiet practice session that no one had witnessed. Those moments had built her foundation. And now she stood on it confidently. One morning, she received an email from an organization that promoted young talent. They had heard about her performance at the community hall and wanted to feature her in a special showcase. The invitation felt like a bridge between her past and the future she had dreamed of. She hesitated for a moment, the weight of fear and doubt still lingering. But she quickly reminded herself of how far she had come. This was not about impressing anyone. It was about sharing her music honestly. She accepted the invitation, determined to give her best. In the weeks leading up to the showcase, she practiced with focus, exploring deeper techniques and expressing emotions she had kept hidden for years. Her piano at home became a sanctuary. Each chord, each melody, carried pieces of her story struggles. Perseverance, hope, and gratitude. The day of the showcase arrived, and the venue was unlike any place she had played before. A small auditorium filled with people who appreciated music and talent waited quietly. The atmosphere was respectful but expectant. She could feel the energy, a mixture of nerves and excitement. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that this was not about judgment or recognition, but about sharing what she had nurtured within herself. When she sat at the piano and began to play, the first notes were gentle, familiar, yet filled with intention. The audience listened intently, some closing their eyes, letting the sound envelop them. Her fingers moved with precision, but also with feeling, telling the story of her journey. Every rise and fall, every pause and flourish, carried emotion that went beyond technical skill. As the performance continued, she felt the music flowing through her, connecting her past with her present. She thought about the cafe, the Millionaire, the moments of Mockery, and the silent nights spent practicing. Every note was a testament to resilience and courage. The audience could feel it, some leaning forward, some swaying with the rhythm. Completely immersed by the final notes, the hall was still. The silence was deep and meaningful. Then, as she played the last chord, the applause began, soft at first, then growing into a powerful wave of appreciation. She rose from the piano, her hands slightly trembling, but her heart full of satisfaction. The people around her approached with smiles, compliments, and words of encouragement. Their reactions were genuine, and she accepted them with quiet humility. After the showcase, she was approached by a few music teachers and local event organizers. They expressed interest in working with her, providing more opportunities to perform, learn, and grow. She realized that the journey she had once thought was impossible was now opening doors she had never imagined. The recognition was not just about her talent, but about her persistence, her willingness to continue despite challenges, and the courage to embrace opportunities when they arose. Back at the cafe, her life felt different yet familiar. The regular customers noticed the change in her, though they did not always understand it. She moved with confidence, her smile warmer, her steps lighter. Some asked about her performances, some simply listened as she shared stories about her musical journey. She had grown not just as a pianist, but as a person who had learned the value of patience, resilience, and self-belief. "I can try," she said. A few gasps followed. Someone whispered, "Is she serious?" She walked toward the piano, each step heavier than the last. The bench felt cold when she sat down. The keys looked older up close. Some were scratched. Some were faded. The cafe was almost silent now. Behind her, she could feel eyes watching, waiting for a mistake. Her fingers hovered above the keys. Doubt crept in. What if the piano sounded worse than she remembered? What if her hands failed her? She closed her eyes for a brief moment and breathed in. This was not about proving anything to them. This was about telling the truth. She had kept quiet for years. Her fingers lowered toward the keys, and the room held its breath. The first note came out softer than expected. It was not loud or dramatic. It was gentle, almost unsure. A few people shifted in their seats as if waiting for something bigger. Someone near the back cleared their throat. She stayed still, letting the sound fade completely before pressing the next key. then another. Slowly, a simple pattern formed. Nothing flashy, nothing meant to impress. Her fingers moved with care, like they were touching something fragile. At first, the cafe felt restless. Cups were still in hands. Phones were half raised. A few smiles carried doubt. The man at the table leaned back, arms crossed, watching closely. Then the melody changed. The notes grew deeper, fuller. The sound began to carry weight, like a quiet story unfolding. Her hands moved more freely now, no longer stiff. Muscle memory took over. Years of silent practice flowed through her fingers. The noise in the cafe slowly disappeared. Someone stopped stirring their coffee. Someone else lowered their phone without realizing it. Conversations faded, one by one, until the only sound left was the piano. She did not look at anyone. Her eyes stayed on the keys, but she was not really seeing them. She was somewhere else now. The music carried emotion that words could not explain. It held sadness, but also strength. It spoke of long nights, of holding on when letting go felt easier. It spoke of hope that refused to die, even when ignored. The old piano responded better than expected. The broken notes blended into something raw and honest. It was not perfect, but it was real. The man's expression changed slowly. At first, his smile faded. Then his posture shifted forward. His arms uncrossed. His eyes narrowed, not in judgment now, but in focus. He was listening. Others at the table exchanged glances. The laughter from earlier felt distant, almost embarrassing. One of them swallowed hard, as if something unexpected had touched them. She moved into a faster section. Her fingers danced across the keys with confidence. The sound filled the cafe, reaching corners that had never known silence before. A customer near the window wiped their eyes quickly, hoping no one noticed. Another leaned back, closing their eyes, letting the music wash over them. For those few minutes, the cafe was no longer a place of orders and money. It became something else. A shared space where everyone felt the same emotion at the same time. The man near the piano felt something shift inside him. He had attended concerts in grand halls. He had paid for private performances. Yet this felt different. There was no stage, no spotlight, no ego. Just truth. She reached the final part of the piece. The notes softened again, returning to where they began. Her hands slowed. Each key pressed felt deliberate. Like a final breath, the last note hung in the air. No one moved. The silence that followed was heavy, almost sacred. It lasted longer than expected. No one wanted to break it, then someone clapped. Just one person at first. Then another. Then the sound grew, spreading across the cafe like a wave. Applause filled the room. She lifted her hands slowly from the keys. Her chest rose and fell quickly. Only then did she realize her hands were shaking. She turned slightly, unsure where to look. People were standing now. Some smiled warmly. Some nodded in respect. Others clapped harder, as if trying to make up for earlier doubt. The man stood up. The room quieted again, not because he demanded it, but because everyone watched him closely. He did not clap at first. He simply looked at her. His face was serious, thoughtful. Then he began to clap slowly, deliberately. His applause felt heavier than the others, honest, earned. She stood up from the bench, stepping back as if unsure whether she belonged there. "You didn't mention that you play like that," he said. She lowered her gaze. "I didn't think it mattered," he exhaled softly. "I was wrong," he admitted. The words surprised the room. "I judged too quickly," he continued, "and I shouldn't have." No excuses followed. No jokes. Just truth. The cafe felt warmer now, lighter. The tension that once filled the air had dissolved. She nodded, not trusting her voice yet. Around them, people returned to their seats slowly, still buzzing from what they had witnessed. Some whispered about how unexpected it was. Others spoke about how moved they felt. She stepped away from the piano, ready to return to work. Habit told her to pick up her tray, disappear back into routine. But something had changed. She could feel it in the way people looked at her now. Not as someone invisible, but as someone real. The man watched her walk back toward the counter. Deep in thought, for the first time that evening, he did not feel like the most important person in the room, and for the first time in a long time, she felt seen. The cafe slowly returned to life, but it was not the same as before. Voices were softer now. Movements felt slower, more careful. People spoke as if they did not want to disturb something invisible that still lingered in the air. She picked up her tray again, her body moving on habit, but her mind was elsewhere. Every step felt strange, like she was walking in a place she had never been before, even though nothing around her had changed. As she passed tables, people looked up at her. Some smiled. Some nodded. A few said quiet words of praise that made her cheeks warm. She answered politely, still unsure how to carry this new attention. At the table near the piano, the man sat silently for a moment. His friends were no longer joking. They spoke in lower voices, careful with their words. She didn't just play, one of them said. She told a story. He nodded slowly. His thoughts were heavy. He had built his life on judging quickly, reading people, deciding who mattered and who did not. That skill had helped him succeed, or so he believed. Tonight challenged that belief. He watched her move behind the counter, focused, humble, unchanged by the applause. That impressed him more than the music itself. When she approached their table again to clear plates, he looked up. "Can we talk?" he asked. She paused. Her first instinct was fear. Not because he was angry, because attention like this had always brought disappointment before. "Yes," she replied softly. He stood, stepping aside so they could speak without an audience. The cafe manager watched from a distance, unsure but curious. "I owe you an apology," he said. She did not respond right away. Apologies were rare from people like him. "I spoke without knowing you," he continued. "That wasn't fair." She nodded once. "It happens. It doesn't make it right," he said. There was no pride in his voice now, only honesty. He asked her how long she had been playing. She told him the truth. About childhood lessons that ended too soon, about practicing alone, about choosing work over dreams. He listened without interrupting. "That kind of discipline," he said. "You can't buy it." She shrugged slightly. It was either that or give up. He studied her for a moment. "Have you ever played outside this place?" She shook her head. "No. Would you want to?" The question landed carefully, but its weight was heavy. She hesitated. Wanting and expecting were different things. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Life doesn't really leave space for that." He smiled, not sharply like before, but thoughtfully. "Sometimes space has to be made." Before she could answer, the cafe manager approached. His tone was cautious, but respectful. "Everything all right?" he asked. "Yes," the man replied. "More than all right." He turned back to her. "I don't make promises lightly," he said, "but I'd like to help. Not because I feel sorry for you, because talent like yours deserves a chance." She felt her chest tighten. Not with excitement, but with fear. Offers often came with conditions, expectations, disappointment. "I need to think." She said, "I wouldn't expect anything else," he replied. He left a generous payment on the table and prepared to leave. Before walking out, he looked back at the piano once more. "Thank you," he said, "for reminding me." The door closed behind him. The cafe buzzed with quiet energy after that. Customers talked about what they had witnessed. Some stayed longer than planned. Others left with thoughtful expressions. She finished her shift later than usual. The manager stopped her before she left. "You were incredible," he said simply. "Thank you," she replied. He hesitated. "If you ever want to play here again, after hours, you can." Her eyes widened slightly. "Really?" he nodded. People don't forget moments like that. That night, she walked home differently. The streetlights felt brighter. The air felt lighter. Nothing in her life had changed yet, but something inside her had shifted. At home, she sat at her old piano. The keys still stuck. The sound was still imperfect. She played anyway. This time, she did not play only for herself. She played with the quiet belief that her music might finally have a place in the world. The cafe opened before the sun fully rose. The lights inside were always warm, but the mornings felt cold. The floor was still damp from cleaning, and the smell of coffee slowly filled the air. She arrived every day at the same time, tying her apron with practiced hands. The apron had faint stains that never fully washed out, no matter how hard she tried. To most people, she was invisible. Just another waitress doing her job. She moved quietly between tables, placing cups, wiping counters, and offering polite smiles. Her smile was real, but it carried tiredness behind it. Long hours had shaped her life. Standing all day had become normal, even when her feet ached. She never complained. Complaining never paid the bills. The cafe was not fancy. It sat on a busy street where office workers rushed by and tourists stopped only when they needed a break. Regular customers came for the coffee, not the people serving it. Most never looked up from their phones. Some spoke without saying please. A few spoke kindly, but even then, they did not really see her. She had learned early in life how easy it was for people to judge. They judged by clothes, by job titles, by the way someone spoke. The apron seemed to erase everything else about her. Dreams, struggles, and talents stayed hidden behind it. After her shift ended, she often stayed a little longer to clean. The cafe had an old piano in the corner. It was placed there years ago as decoration, not really meant to be used. Some keys were chipped. Others were slightly out of tune. Most customers thought it was just part of the cafe's style. She always glanced at it while cleaning, never touching it. Never sitting at it during work hours. She knew better. The cafe manager was strict about rules. No playing during business hours. No distractions. She respected that. But inside her chest, something always stirred when she looked at the piano. A feeling that never went away. Her love for music began long before the cafe. Long before the apron. As a child, she had been drawn to sound. Even simple tunes made her stop and listen. She remembered the first time she touched piano keys. They felt cold and smooth, but the sound felt warm, like a voice that understood her. Back then, life was simpler, but also harder. Money was always short. Her family did their best, but dreams were often pushed aside to survive. Piano lessons did not last long. Bills came first, school came second. Music slowly became something she loved quietly, in secret. When she grew older, responsibilities replaced practice time. Work replaced lessons. Still, the music stayed with her. She listened when she could. She practiced when no one watched. She learned to play by memory and feeling rather than formal training. At home, she had an old piano that barely worked. Some keys stuck. Some made dull sounds. But it was enough. Late at night, when the world was quiet, she played. Her fingers remembered what life tried to make her forget. Music became her way of releasing everything she could not say out loud. The long days, the tired body, the quiet disappointment of feeling unseen. When she played, none of that mattered. Time slowed. The room felt lighter. Yet she never told anyone at work. Experience had taught her not to share too much. People laughed at dreams that did not fit their idea of success. A waitress talking about piano felt like a joke to some. She did not want to give them a reason to laugh, so she kept her head down and worked. One afternoon, a group of customers sat near the piano. They joked loudly, talking about money, success, and talent. Their voices filled the cafe. She served them politely, refilling cups, listening without meaning to. One of them said talent only mattered if someone had the right background. Another said effort was useless without connections. They laughed as if the truth belonged only to them. She walked away, but the words stayed with her. She thought about how many people had talent, but no chance. How many dreams stayed locked away because life demanded something else. At the counter, another waitress whispered something about rich customers coming later that evening. Important people. Big spenders. Everyone was told to be on their best behavior. She nodded and continued working. Important people came and went all the time. They never changed her life. They never noticed her. Still, something felt different that day. A strange tension sat in the air. As evening approached, the cafe grew busier. Lights felt brighter, voices louder. The piano sat quietly in its corner. Untouched, she tied her apron again, straightened her posture, and prepared herself for another long shift. She did not know that the night Ada would test everything she believed about herself. She did not know that years of silence were about to break. At that moment, she was still just a waitress in an apron, carrying cups across a crowded cafe, hiding a world of music inside her that no one had heard yet. The evening rush began like any other. Chairs scraped softly against the floor as customers settled in. Cups clinked. Orders were called out. She moved faster now, her steps trained by habit. The tiredness from the morning was still there, but she pushed it aside. Busy hours did not allow room for fatigue. The bell above the cafe door rang, and heads turned. A group walked in, dressed sharply, voices confident, laughter loud. People noticed them right away. They carried the kind of presence that came from money and comfort. One man stood out more than the rest. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes scanned the room as if he owned it. Others leaned toward him when they spoke, waiting for his reaction. Whispers spread quickly. Someone mentioned his success. Someone else mentioned his wealth. She did not know his name, and she did not care. To her, he was just another customer who needed a table and a menu. She guided them to a large table near the center of the cafe. It happened to be close to the piano. She noticed this only for a second before handing out menus. He barely looked at her, nodding once, as if that was enough. As she walked away, she heard laughter behind her. They spoke about business deals, about people they had beaten in competition, about places they had traveled. Their words were confident, sometimes sharp. It was the sound of people who had never doubted their place in the world. She focused on her work. But the table kept drawing attention. Other customers glanced over, curious. Some smiled politely at the group, hoping to be noticed. The cafe felt different now, like everyone was quietly performing when she returned to take their order. The man looked up at her properly for the first time. His eyes paused on her apron, then moved to her face. He ordered quickly, clearly used to being obeyed without question. While writing it down, she accidentally knocked her pen against the table. It made a small sound, nothing serious. Still, one of the people at the table laughed. "Careful," he said lightly. "Don't want to spill talent all over the place." The others laughed. She forced a polite smile, finished writing, and stepped away. She had heard worse before. Comments like that were common. Still, something about the tone made her chest tighten. As the evening went on, their table grew louder. The man spoke confidently about success and failure. He talked about how talent meant nothing without discipline and money. He said people liked to imagine they were special, but most were not. She passed by with a tray, pretending not to hear, but every word landed heavily. At one point, someone at the table noticed the piano. "Does that thing even work?" one of them asked. The man smirked. "It probably exists to make the place look cultured." They laughed again. She felt her hands tighten around the tray. She kept walking. Later, while clearing plates, someone asked her casually if anyone ever played it. "Not really," she replied softly. The man raised an eyebrow. "You play?" The question came suddenly. She hesitated for half a second too long. "A little," she said, almost automatically. The table went quiet for a moment. Then someone chuckled. "A little," the man repeated. "Here." She nodded, already wishing she had stayed silent. "Well," another voice said, "that would be interesting." The man leaned back in his chair, studying her now. Not unkindly, but with doubt that was clear and sharp. "You mean you can actually play piano?" he asked. She felt every pair of eyes on her. The cafe seemed quieter, as if waiting. "Yes," she said. Her voice did not shake, though her hands did. The man smiled, but it was not a warm smile. "I've met many people who say that," he replied. "Very few can prove it." A soft laugh spread across the table. Someone nearby listened closely. "She's brave," one of them said. "Or confident. Or joking," another added. She stood there, unsure what to do. Walking away felt like defeat. Staying felt dangerous. "Well," the man said after a pause, "since it's here, why not?" He gestured toward the piano. "Unless the cafe only allows professionals." His tone sounded polite, but the challenge beneath it was clear. She glanced toward the counter. The manager was busy with another customer. No one stopped the conversation. No one helped her. The cafe buzzed with quiet excitement. People leaned forward slightly. Some looked amused. Some looked curious. A few looked uncomfortable. She swallowed. Her heart beat faster. "I'm working," she said carefully. The man waved a hand. "I'm sure a short performance won't hurt business." Someone laughed again. She felt the familiar weight of judgment pressing down. This was the moment she usually avoided. The moment where dreams became something to mock. She thought of the nights alone with her broken piano. The hours spent playing without applause. The music that lived inside her without an audience. Slowly, she placed the tray down.